real leader must speak truth, no matter how difficult it may be to hear. Any real leader must acknowledge the racial disparities that exist in America and deal with them. Deal with what we need to handle in our public health care system when African Americans and Latinos are 3 times likely to contract COVID and twice as likely to die from it.
That's right.
Deal with it when we know Latinos have some of the highest rates of diabetes of any population, highest rates of high blood pressure of any population, and we need to deal with that. Let's deal with the disparities in terms of our public education system and put resources into Title I schools, knowing that is where our children who have such God-given capacity deserve to have the resources to allow them to grow and develop. And that is why we will triple Title I funding. Joe Biden has the courage and the ability to see what's going on, to say, disproportionately, Black and Latino young people are being arrested, and we need to address the disparities in our criminal justice system and reform the system by doing a number of things: getting rid of mandatory minimums, decriminalizing marijuana, expunging the records of people who have been convicted of marijuana, shutting down private prisons, eliminating cash bail, because that is an economic justice issue as much as it is a criminal justice issue.
Kamala! 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 Kamala!
And on the other hand, you have
Kamala! 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 Kamala!
who at the first debate, you guys remember this? At the first debate, refused to condemn white supremacists.
Lock him up!
And
Lock
then
him up!
doubled down by saying stand back and stand by.
Lock him up! Lock him up!
And remember, this wasn't a one-off. We've seen a pattern.
That's right.
Let's go back to the fact that he ran trying to suggest that the first Black president of the United States was not a legitimate president of the United States. Let's remember, on the issue of Charlottesville, where people were peacefully protesting racial injustice, a young woman was killed. And on the other side, there were neo-Nazis wearing swastikas, carrying tiki torches, hurling racial epithets, anti-Semitic epithets. And the President of the United States said, there are fine people on each side.
No.
The President of the United States, who called Mexicans rapists and criminals. The President of the United States, who as his first order of business put in place a Muslim ban. We deserve better than this.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Madam Vice President.
And Joe Biden, in his heart, knows who we really are.
Yes, he does.
Joe Biden, in his heart, knows that regardless of where you live, your race, your gender, your age, the language your grandmother speaks, Joe Biden knows that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us.
Tell the truth.
And it is time that we reject hate and division and unify as a country. Let's deal with an issue Texas knows well, the issue of the climate crisis. You said it correctly. So, Texas knows we're dealing with a climate crisis as a world. We're looking at, on the West Coast, you know, where I'm from, we're looking at wildfires from California to Washington over to Colorado. Whole communities of people being burned out of their homes. I've met people who have been evacuated from their homes, never to be able to
Hi, Mary.
return. I've met with firefighters who were fighting fires while their own homes were
Hi,
burning. My brother-in-law's a firefighter. We look at the Gulf states, neighbors to Texas. There have been 5 named storms this year alone. They name a storm because it's that bad. 5. The most recent one being Zeta. We're looking at what's been happening in the Midwest. Farmers losing a whole season of crops because of the floods. Joe Biden says, we need to embrace science. We need to speak truth. We need to deal with this with timelines and a sense of urgency because we need to be able to breathe clean air and drink clean water and see the connection between human behaviors and the crisis we are facing. Joe knows this is not only about what we need to do for our environment. The opportunity in the moment is we can also create jobs. We can invest in infrastructure, in renewable energies, in solar and wind, and that will be millions of jobs.
That's right.
Joe also knows this is an environmental justice issue. When you're looking at the fact that in all of the areas in the country that have poor air quality, 70% of the people who live in those places are people of color. Joe knows that. And he understands how we can build back better in a way that we deal with the science. We build up an infrastructure where we create millions of jobs, and we do it in a way that is about equitable outcomes.
Build back better! Build back better! Build back better!
And we will.
Build back better!
On the other hand, you have
I need to go
Donald
to a
Trump.
convention.
Okay, so here's the thing. On the issue of the wildfires, he was interviewed, and the journalist said something like, you know, these wildfires are happening in California, and the scientists are saying that there's a connection between the extreme weather and the fires. And the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, responded, "Science doesn't know." Can you imagine? As though science is a person, literally rejecting the notion that we have so much evidence that is undisputed about what is upon us and the opportunity we have at the moment. So, Rio Grande, I say all this to say, there's a lot that we need to deal with. And these are many of the issues that are at play in this election. And Texas has been turning it out. You guys have been turning it out. You have been turning it out. You have been standing in line, you've been organizing, you are making a huge difference. And so here's the thing on voting. You know, I think there are 3 reasons that people need to vote. You know, people ask, why should I vote? Why is it important? There are 3 reasons, I think. 1, it's important to vote to honor the ancestors.
That's right.
Honor the ancestors. All those people who came before us, who fought for our right to vote. People like John Lewis, the congressman who passed away this year, who said, let's get in good trouble. John Lewis, who shed his blood on the Edmund Pettus Bridge for our right to vote. John Lewis, who knew this was a matter of civil rights and dignity. John Lewis, who understood that it was also a matter of civil rights and dignity to fight for same-sex marriage. John Lewis, who also knew it was a matter of civil rights and dignity to fight for protections for dreamers and for a pathway for citizenship. So, It's important to vote to honor the ancestors. You know, this year we celebrated the 19th Amendment, which allowed women to vote. We celebrated the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. All those suffragettes who 100 years ago marched and fought for our right to vote. Now, it's important to remember history, because it wasn't until 1965 that black women could vote, so we still have work to do. But it is time to vote to honor the ancestors. That's reason number one.
That's right. Number one.
Reason number two, everything is at stake.
Everything.
Everything is at stake.
Everything.
When this administration has orphaned 545 children because of a policy that has been about separating children from their parents at the border, everything is at stake.
Everything. Everything. Everything.
When we are looking at the fact that 200,000 of our frontline workers have been dreamers who were promised DACA protection, everything is at stake.
Everything. Everything.
Everything is at stake when we need to create a pathway towards citizenship. Everything is at stake when we talk about equal pay for equal work for women.
Everything. Everything. Equal pay. Equal
Everything
pay.
is at stake. So that's reason number two. And then here's reason number three. So I've been traveling the country, and I'll tell you, just like here in Texas, there are powerful people around our country that have been making it really difficult for people to vote. They've been passing laws. You know, in North Carolina, they passed a law that the court that reviewed the law said it was written with surgical precision to prevent black people in North Carolina from voting. We have seen this around the country where laws have been put in place to make it difficult for people of color, for students, for our Native American brothers and sisters to vote.
That's right.
Laws like here in Texas where they're taking the drop boxes, where they're in other places where they're shutting down polling sites, where they're requiring people to fill out 2 different envelopes if their mail-in ballot is going to count. The president who took the debate stage and in front of 70 million Americans openly solicited a suppression of the vote.
Yep. Yeah.
So we have to ask, why are so many powerful people trying to make it so difficult and confusing for us to vote? Why are they, for example, messing with the post office? I mean, the post office. Like, the nicest people work for the post office. Why are they doing this? And I believe it is because they know our power. They know our power. And we know our power. And we will not let anyone take our power from us.
Come on out! Come on out! Come on out!
And
Come
that is the reason.
Come on out! 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 Come on out!
To fight for this country we love. And so my last point is this.
Madam VP!
This moment will pass.
Madam VP!
It will pass. And one day in the future, our children, our grandchildren, others, they will look in our eyes, each one of us.
Yes,
They
ma'am.
will look in our eyes and they will ask us,
Well,
where were you at that moment?
tell the truth. Tell it.
And what we are going to tell them,
I'm right here.
we were hanging out at UT Rio Grande Valley this Friday afternoon on the last day of early voting. our responsibility and commitment to them, we will tell them that we elected Joe Biden, President of the United States. Thank you. Thank you,
Let's go!